I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
How does the present differ from the vision that we had, and I said we, from the civil rights movement? It differs in a lot of different ways. As a barber, that's a form of entrepreneurship. And I always knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to be my own boss, own my own business. So when I think back on that, compared to today, things are better in that sense. That's part of the dream that I think Dr. King talked about, that would equalize the playing field, where a black man could go into a bank, get a loan based on his or her qualifications and being able to produce proof that he or she could pay it back. You see, so that's one of the things that Dr. King, I think, talked about, and that's part of the dream. Compared to yesteryear, where you almost had to go in your pocket or break your piggy bank to start up your business. That's not the case, so that's improvement, you see.
And the vision from back when to now is totally different, because some thought the vision was just getting rid of segregation. And then once that happened, unfortunately, some of them went to sleep without ever realizing that that was not the only problem. Segregation was only a piece of the major problem being white supremacy. So once segregation ended, then some people just went home and went to sleep. And I don't mean that literally, but awareness-wise. They thought they won the battle, it was over, they went home. Others, on the other hand, knew it was not over, that the legacy of slavery, which is discrimination, Jim Crow law, white supremacy, was not going to go anywhere. So understanding what people, and don't get me wrong, it was a victory to get rid of official segregation. That was a victory, but it was only partial, I might say. So back then, that seemed to be the emphasis from most civil rights activists. It wasn't mine, but that was the emphasis for most civil rights activists. Sure, I wanted to get rid of segregation, but I knew that was only a starting point. So that vision then, now, because I think that vision wasn't totally encompassed in the overall problem, we still have that problem now with police abuse, have that problem now still with white supremacy, with all kinds of violence going on even now, because I don't think we looked at the whole picture, we only looked at a little piece of it.
The vision that we fought for during the civil rights era was planned. We knew the kind of initiatives we wanted to accomplish. And you could almost write them out on paper. We knew what we didn't have. The difference today is it's almost as though we're in shock that a lot of the things that we are being hit with are do-overs. And they are requiring us to revisit some of the accomplishments we already had stacked away. We were looking at new possibilities, other initiatives, and it's very challenging, it's disappointing to realize that so many of the communications that we had, so many of the understandings that we thought were secure are no longer. And that is very difficult to realize that when we thought we had accomplished something, we have to now revisit that activity or that principle or that event or that opportunity and ask for it all over again.
I think somewhere along the line, our younger generation has not grasped the dream, and they don't dream big like my generation did. And I think it was because we were really hungry and thirsty to do things that was out of the ordinary. Things that we saw that was happening in our towns and our community that we were not doing ourselves. So we had a drive to be able to do those things. And in many instances we did. Was it easy? No, it was not. But we did it because we had good work ethics. We had, in some instances, good relationships with our community. So we had somewhat of a community base that was kind of like a supporting cast, so to speak, that would urge you on. That's a good idea, Mr. Williams. That's a good idea, Mr. Thompson. We got your back. We're going to help you with it. We got better education. We got better jobs. We got better higher position. But we lost respect and genuine brotherhood and sisterhood for one another so that it could make it easier for you to do your task. That's one of the things that we missed out on. That's one of the things when Dr. King talked about his 4 little children walking down the streets hand in hand with other white. We accomplished that. But we lost the fact that when we grab that hand and say, I'm your brother, we really mean it. Have a genuine sense of meaning behind it. We kind of lost that. And then one of the other things that disturbs me about what's happening today is all of the hatred, the hate that people have against one another or against an individual because the color of the skin is different, the texture of the hair is different, the neighborhood is different, the language is different, and in some instances, because you don't look the way I think you ought to look. Dr. King would be very disappointed with that because when you look at a beautiful portrait, you see a lot of different things in that portrait, and that reminds me of the human race. When I look out across the broad spectrum, I see brown folk, black folk, tan folk, and if we all work together, it puts together a beautiful portrait of who we really are. And when we start hating on one another and taking some of those colors away from the portrait, then it's not complete. And it will not be complete until we truly learn to love one another as sisters and brothers so we can bring all those colors back together so we can make life whole and complete.
Well, one has to probably go back to slavery and in the aftermath of slavery during Reconstruction, when the idea there was to make things available like education to the black community during Reconstruction, but it was tailored so that it was only a vocational education, so that if you were black or even brown for that matter, you couldn't become a doctor, you couldn't become a lawyer, you couldn't become the things that would, or get involved in careers and get the education for a career that would compete with a white person. So I think we've made some progress in that realm. The road to freedom, as Mandela says, is a very long road. And so we've got a lot to correct. It's still yet more to come.
The young people today have grasped opportunities that were unavailable to us in a myriad of ways. I only look on television, and I am thrilled that there are so many young people whose understanding of every facet of our lives is so on point, so clear, so articulated. And it just makes me feel proud and so I think I value so much their awareness that these opportunities are available to them and they're just taking them and learning everything they can. We weren't in the rooms of a lot of what was happening. And now they're in the rooms. They're running their own newspapers, their own podcasts. So that's just on the journalism side. To see us move into these areas that help everyone, the common good, not just African Americans, I think that's just fantastic. Those are like, to us, those would have been like luxuries.
When I think of individuals who paved the way for me and others in the name of people like Claude Black, G.J. Sutton, Harry Burns, that's why I put this museum together, so that people can come and not only see their pictures, but read about them, and then have someone tell a story about how they fought to make things good for us. Things were not always easy for us. Somebody fought to make that possible. That didn't just happen by osmosis. That didn't just happen because somebody popped a finger. Somebody got ugly words slurred at them. Someone got spat on. Someone got slapped. And someone had their houses burned. As a matter of fact, the church that I was a member of at that time, Mount Zion First Baptist, was burned twice because the pastor of that church, Claude Black, was very much involved in the civil rights movement. So the legacy is to remember those people who made a difference. So we got to remember whose shoulders we stand on. We got to remember that when we sit in the movie theater next to a white person, it was not always like that.
I would like for the civil rights movement in San Antonio to be remembered in terms of the people that fought for civil rights before my time and actually before their time. So we can go all the way back to Frederick Douglass, the 1800s. We go back to David Walker, 1830s or so, Nat Turner, 1830s. We need to go all the way back always to know who each generation stood on someone's shoulders. So the ones in my memory, back G.J. Sutton, Reverend Claude Black, Ethel Minor, Charles Williams, those people were before me, and I stand on their shoulders, just like they stood on someone else's shoulders. So the thing we have to remember is the continuity of history of how people fought way back when and are still fighting through that legacy that was transferred from the past to the present. And I remember Colonel Roy Burley, I remember him telling me before he passed away that that torch has been passed on to me and others. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "Do us right, Mario. Do us right. Our time is limited. Do us right." I'll never forget those words. When you talk about civil rights, you're talking about human rights. And the struggle for human rights is just something that's never going to end. It's perpetual. That's what we need to remember in today's light and honor those people, but not just that. Because we can honor people all day long, but if we're not willing to take a step forward and look at the injustices that we're experiencing now, then what good is it to remember these people from the past if you're not going to take that torch and move it forward?
I would want the legacy of the civil rights movement in San Antonio to be remembered as, one, successful, that we accomplished something, that we made a difference. Anything we do in our lives, if it doesn't change anything, if it doesn't make a difference, what have we done? What have we done?
I think he would be disappointed with the fact that we don't have enough dreamers. Now, let me hasten to say there are a lot of young people that dream big, but not enough of us, not enough of us. And I don't know the answer to that, except that in some instances we have kind of raised a lazy generation of people. You got to work. It's one thing to dream it, it's another to work to dream. And in many instances we want it given to us on a silver platter, and that's not what Dr. King was talking about. When he talked about equality, he talked about giving it to us because I'm qualified, not because I'm asking you to just give me something, you see. And I think he would be disappointed with that. We don't dream big. We don't aspire to do the unusual things that Dr. King talked about. We don't have enough people that would do what Dr. King did, that's willing to lay down his life for human beings and for things to be on an equal playing field. I think he would be somewhat disappointed with that.
Martin Luther King might look at the state of affairs today and feel conflicted. The venom, the anger, the in-your-face anger and meanness was something that we were hoping it was of the past. And he would be surprised to see that is not true. And that the world still finds our presence in some way offensive, interruptive. And he would want us to say, he would want to say to us, I think, get a backbone. Where's your inner pride and strength? Where's your courage? You know who you are. The young people who are choosing to follow in our paths, I would say, learn, talk to us. Learn what we didn't know and know it now. Don't wait. Sometimes we just get smarter with age, but age takes you out of the game. And we want you to stay in the game. So develop your thinking skills, your discerning skills. How do you evaluate, critique, succeed, move around a process? How do you get the job done? I think it's very important that we say to you, you are enough. I'm a much better person than I was 37 years ago when I chaired the first Martin Luther King celebration. I had some qualities then, but the sooner you can grow, the sooner you can be of service. And the sooner you can lead. Read about, Martin Luther King was only 39 when he died. He did enough to get a Nobel Peace Prize. He did enough to make all of us grow in consensus toward his goals. That is almost unbelievable.
Let freedom ring, and when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.